On today's episode, I spoke with Yoann Pavy, who is the CMO at Nude, a fintech startup that helps people save for their first home in the UK. And Yoann helped Nude grow their users from 0 to 300K in just 12 months. And we talked about a lot of different topics here, from marketplace marketing to organic growth strategies and more. So let's dive right into his expertise in this episode. So
Yeah.
let's start off just by kind of setting the foundation for who you are and what you care about. So if you wouldn't mind giving a brief little description of what your careers kind of look like as a marketer and what you're doing now, all the steps that kind of led up to what you're building right now.
Yeah, I can do. So my name is Johan. Thank you for having me, Blake. It's a pleasure. I'm currently a CMO at Nude, who's a fintech in the UK for first-time home buyers. I've been in marketing for about 10 years, mostly in the startup tech scene in London, in the UK. Um, I've started as an agency account manager. That's how I got into marketing and the early days of Facebook ads. That was my entry point into marketing, so digital marketing. I studied something different in school, so more like engineering type. I had a bit of a career change in my mid-20s. I wasn't fit for that career, so I was more into tech and social media and kind of like culture in general, however you want to define it. And from this agency, I worked with doing Facebook ads for many clients in many industries. I stumbled upon a company at the time that was on the cusp of becoming very big, called Deliveroo. So marketplace, food delivery marketplace in the UK, who became one of the best example of like hyper growth startup, like unicorn in the UK. I think the number is still that there's only been like 17 exited unicorns in the UK. And basically, my career has given me the chance to work at two of them. The second one was Depop, second-hand fashion marketplace. So in both cases apps, in both cases marketplaces. Uh, Not necessarily something that I was thinking consciously about doing, but it's how it happened. I just liked the disruptive businesses and disruptive ideas. That's kind of what attracted me to those kind of businesses. But I had a few other roles in between, like in B2B, a bit of like sales marketing type of like B2B type of marketing, which is slightly different, even though it's converging into more B2C now strategies. And then, more recently, working at Nude, who's a fintech company in the UK. So yeah, it's kind of me in a nutshell.
But before we dive into what you're building right now, I want to look at those two roles specifically from the marketplace side of things. How do you feel like building and growing a marketplace app is more challenging for a marketer than, a more traditional B2B or B2C business?
Yeah, it is. There's always the classic chicken and egg type of a problem. And I feel like in both cases, we tackle both sides of the marketplace slightly differently. And both sides don't necessarily require the same attention of marketing that the other needs. So, for example, at Deliveroo, it was mostly focusing at the beginning on the demand from a marketing point of view. The supply was done more operationally on the ground, like signing up restaurants, but less driven by marketing, more driven by people and ops. But that quickly changed when the demand grew through rapid expansion, multi countries, and I think we went from like 2 countries to 14 countries in the space of 6 months. Literally, my first 6 months in a row. So it was pretty aggressive, and we needed more drivers, more delivery people. So the marketing for the supply, um, I should say as well, like Deliveroo is a three-party marketplace. There's a restaurant, the drivers, and the consumers. So there's actually three-sided marketplace. But the delivery side of the business got helped by marketing further down the line when the demand was increasing. We needed more driver quickly. So it's a fluid thing depending on the needs of the business at a given time, and it's not a forever answer. It really changes based on the supply and demand. In the case of Depop, it was always more marketing was always more geared towards buyers. That was kind of our angle, even though we knew that a buyer can be a seller and vice versa. Like in those kind of marketplaces, like I don't know, you've got others like FinTech, Poshmark, like depending on the countries, there's a few like big players. Etsy, they they I'm sure they have all like different strategy. Before us, it was mostly like driven by buyers from a marketing standpoint. Yeah.
And so now at Nude, let's dive into that a little bit. What does
Yeah.
growth look like since you've started at Nude? And then
Yeah.
the part B of that question is, we can get into how you've actually done it. But let's just start with what it actually has looked like in
Mhm.
terms of metrics, and then we can get into how you've built.
So I joined Nude as first as an advisor, like fractional marketer. For a few months, it was a lot to do with product market fit, finding the right messaging and the right product to put out to the market. And then what we achieved in the last 18 months was to basically grow from zero to almost 400,000 now registered users into the app, with probably one of the smallest budget in the fintech industry ever, because we're still small. But we grew really, really rapidly from a user point of view, and then we did that basically based on three things. I think we changed what a fintech could look like in terms of like branding, tone of voice, like just the content that we are putting out to our people, just the way we interact with people and engage with them. The second thing was growth. I think we had very innovative ideas to bring to the market to convert people into customers, and for these people to bring more people with them or communicate to their network about them being on Nude. And then the third thing was the way we used short form video on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. I think that created an engine for us that worked really, really well, and that allowed us to scale very rapidly. And some of the things that we brought to the table came from my experience in other industries, which I brought crossed over to fintech, which not necessarily were like common in that industry at the time.
I definitely want to dive into those a little bit deeper, but you had mentioned first when you came on board that you helped with messaging and positioning. I'm just curious, really at a high level, what
Mm.
changed? What was the messaging that Nude was using, like as you joined, and what is it now? How did you make that change?
Yeah. So I think the biggest change that we made was around the type of creative that that we were using at the time to promote the business. So in still to this day, um, your typical fintech creative will be uh, mm, I don't know, like showcasing a card, for example, or like a debit card or something. Very short, very product focused, not very organic or very human. driven, like just very practical around trying to sell you a product or an interest rate or a use case, but in a very in a very engaging way. And I think we tried that at the beginning because even myself coming into fintech for the first time, you tend to look at what's out there and replicate. So that means like the way we engage you engage with people ends up being not very not very good from a traffic point of view, especially when you don't have that much budget. Um, your cost of install can be very expensive, which might be fine for big players that have a ton of money to burn, and that still fits with their KPIs. But when you're very restricted, you have to be quite inventive. So we quickly changed all that and went into like a very like I think trying to simplify is like replicating what a DTC e-com company would use as a creative, like very creator driven, influencer driven, very practical as to like how does the product fit in someone's life, as opposed to talking about a savings account or just the interest rate that is attached to it. And that drastically changed. First of all, it allowed us to test a lot more messaging very quickly by using different creators and different hooks, different angles to like tackle the problem that we were trying to solve and how we're trying to solve it. And we very quickly found a few winning formulas, which meant that our traffic was really cheap, but also the conversions was improved in terms of who were getting through the door and customers that we were getting off the back of that. So I still do believe that the best way to test a lot of messaging and learn as fast as possible is still to use ads. Like within like a couple of days you can get a sense, even 24 hours you can get a sense as to like if something is working or not. And I think we executed that very well, and that brought us to where we are.
You mentioned a couple times how budget was a little bit lower compared to other fintech. How do you feel like that you've used that to your advantage to have a low budget right now? Because I think there are tons of marketing teams right now that are having to deal with that reality where
Yeah,
they may have had a bigger budget and now they don't, or they're just starting with a small budget and they have to
yeah.
still get the same results. What were the things that you did to kind of stay low on budget, but still kind of use that to your advantage?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing was to get the creative right, because if you can get the creative right, you'll get your click through rate will go up, your CPCs will go down, and if you've got like a, a good onboarding flow in your app, or a nice, let's just call it like a nice way to generate first party data. So collecting emails, for example, having someone creating a profile. If you're paying 10 times less what your competitor pays, they can have 10 times more budget. You'll be on par with them. Basically, that's how you fight a lower budget. Is like how effective can your traffic can be, so you can compete with people with like 10, 20 times your budget. And it's definitely doable because in most cases, the bigger player don't have the same KPIs as you, and they can afford to. They don't have to work as hard as you to get to the best results. So there's often a lot of things to do to compete on that front. The other things that we did was differentiate on the brand side of things. So I think we're the only fintech, at least in the UK, maybe in more than the UK, that have they always had a newsletter of the back of our brand that works as a. I like the idea of an alternative account or an alternative brand, alt brand for any brand that kind of talks about what you do, but doesn't really sell the product It's just there to add a layer to your content, to what people will receive from you. That is a softer touch, but still works as collecting first-party data, like email addresses. So it could be a newsletter, could be a podcast. I always really wanted to do a podcast. We haven't got to that yet because that requires a little bit more time and resources. But a newsletter is totally doable. Doesn't necessarily require more budget. For you, it's writing. It's like, do you have time to write? We took the approach of having an interview-based newsletter. So every week we get someone else that we ask a few questions about becoming an adult and getting your shit together, which is around the topic of what we do, which is helping young people saving for their first home and, achieving one of the biggest goal in people's life. So yeah, that's another thing that we did. Finding ways to create thickness in your brand and a way to differentiate yourself that doesn't require more budget.
So you've got the newsletter, you've got short form video you've mentioned. In terms of organic growth, with those things, what else is there that makes up your organic growth engine that you really care about? And what are the different components, or we do this amount of video, or, break that down for me.
That's a good question. So, we very quickly partner with creators to achieve scale with our content very fast. The brief for me was, can we have a video coming out every day on TikTok forever? I'm kind of stopped now. We're rebuilding that part of the engine, but for most of the last 18 months, we had a couple of creators that are often young, often, it's they're freelancers, they're not full-time employees, so you have a lot of flexibility with that. And the brief was, this is what we talk about. This is kind of like the universe of what we talk about. Your brief is to create 30 videos a month. And we'll use those videos and then use third-party tools to distribute those videos across all the channels that you can imagine. YouTube Shorts, Reel, Pinterest, Twitter, whatever. Whatever we can connect it to, we'll just connect it to it. And what that meant is that very quickly for a small company, we were everywhere. And even if we had a small team, it looked like we were 10 times the size because of the sheer volume of videos that were coming out from us every day. So that means that we grew on TikTok fairly quickly. I think we're still in our field, we're still the only fintech company that even has a TikTok account. So I think we're still ahead of the curve with this, even though we slow down a little bit in the volumes. But I think I'm really for the volume kind of strategy and really try a lot of things without being too compromising on whether or not we think it's gonna work. Because I feel like in the last couple of years, especially since TikTok became what it is today, I think you never know, what's gonna pop basically, and it's good to just try a bunch of different things. So we basically put a process in place, so we have a lot of content going out using creators, and then the other side of our growth engine was more around figuring out how can we activate our customer base to engage with their direct network. So we thought about this in little circles around a dot being our customer, what's the next circle around them, and try and expand that circle with more and more features. So for example, we've got a feature called Team Up, which allows for someone and their partner, could be a friend, could be a boyfriend, wife, a husband, to use the tool as a two-player mode, basically. So then you start saving together, the app changes, so you see your partner's name within the app. Like, it makes it a very pleasant experience. So that created some, like, obviously some organic growth, because one customer can become two customers. We did a bunch of work on like behavioral science as well. Like, the way we visualize a goal is based on the time, not based on the money. So the more you save, the more you've got a countdown towards your goal, which is also like a very like novel approach to tackling a goal. But yeah, we have a bunch of features like that. So like Team Up, we've got like another feature called Gift Time. So again, to go to the next layer of network, which is your friends and your family, we were the first to allow people to contribute to that type of account in the UK, which is a specific type of account, to use like through webhook and a web page and using open banking for your friends and family to contribute to your deposit. And that meant that we could create a growth loop around that. So people contributing to your account can also then become customer themselves. And then the last thing we did was like more like a lottery giveaway thing within the app, where to have more chance to win a prize every month, we encourage you to share a link on your messaging app, so like WhatsApp, iMessage, whatever you use, Telegram, and all of that combined basically like adds organic growth to everything else that I mentioned. So we've got the top of funnel kind of covered with engaging short form video, a cheap cost of traffic, a lot of customers coming into the app, and then when they enter the app, we've got like a bunch of features to continue that organic growth and those viral loop. Viral is a big word, but yeah, some loops within that, and yeah, that forms the engine basically.
I love it. Last question for you before we let you go. I'm just curious what your tech stack looks like, specifically just marketing tools. What are maybe the 3 tools that you use for marketing as a company that you love the most?
Let me think about it. So the first one, I think the one that comes to mind first is that tool we use to distribute videos across channels. There might be not the only one, but we use one called repurpose.io. Basically takes any of the videos that you put somewhere, takes away the watermarks, and then you can connect any of your other accounts to it. And you can automate, like auto scheduling whatever comes from that one channel into all the other channels. That for a small team is a game changer, to be honest. So I'll definitely recommend this one. What other tool do I use? Like we don't use that many. I use all the native like platforms, obviously, like advertising platform that you know of, like Ads Manager and TikTok platforms and everything. I probably refresh Mixpanel 20 million times every day because I'm obsessed with the numbers. That's part of our stack, just like tracking events within our business, conversion rates, etc. And yeah, I think I think that's it. Just those two, and then the native platforms. That's probably my top 3.